Okay, hi, hi everybody. Sorry, I think the session started a bit preemptively.
Director of the foundation. He has more than 2 decades.
Okay.
No, Trish, I was going to just ask if all of the speakers were here, and if you want to go get out and get in just to see if your camera works, we can do that.
Yeah, I just want to see if my camera, it says it's loading. And I put my camera on, but I can't see myself.
Okay, while we wait to Trish, well, I cannot see you either, Trish.
Yeah.
I am going to apologize. The platform for the G20 is not working. We are going to record this and then it will be uploaded to the platform. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for understanding, for the patience, and for entering. I'm not going to take more of your time. There is Ade if she wants to say something.
Yeah, I feel so happy to see beautiful friends around the world here, joined with Tricia Langman. You are very welcome to this G20, Changemakers20, in order to see how we go beyond, let's say, the problems, and we collaborate in order to make happen the new ways of our relationship among us, among culture, among the earth, no? So very welcome, and leave the space to Trish. I will be here supporting and listening and inspiring. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I can't be seen, but would like to set the stage for this amazing session. We are going to be talking about circularity in Africa, and what we're talking about today applies to many of the countries in the global South. We really are going to be talking about the importance of circular thinking and how it's going to be transforming Africa and essentially the global South as well. So many of the findings and insights we've got today are applicable to many countries. So we've got a great lineup of guests today. I think a couple of them couldn't make it because I'm not sure they received the message in time. But I'm going to have our guests introduce themselves. So let's start off with Tamburai, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Hi, thank you so much, Trish, and it's a pleasure to meet everybody. My name is Tamburai Chirume, and I'm the co-founder of a mother and daughter design collaboration based in Cape Town, South Africa, called One of Each. With the sustainable fashion business we also have a new founded school, which is called the African Academy of Fashion. And our focus is to bridge the gap between education in fashion as well as the work practice. So we basically train young women who are under the age of 35, and we then help them to find jobs in companies that are similar to ours, who we know will take care of them. Thank you so much, and I look forward to this conversation.
We have also the Larry Robes Foundation. I'm hoping that they are here. Maybe they are not here. Okay. All right. So Katekani, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. I'm Katekani. I'm an experimental designer based in Mpumalanga, South Africa. So basically what me and my team do, we go around rural areas and we find the most challenging pollution that they're facing, and we try to turn it around to try and figure out how they can use it to their benefit and try to be creative around it and just try to think circularly around the disadvantages that are around their community. So I'm excited to have this conversation with everybody. And I'm just so happy that I caught the last sessions. I got to learn a little bit of Spanish. I had a lot of muchas gracias. So I'm really happy that it started off this conversation very well. Thank you.
Thank you. Yvonne, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello everyone. My name's Yvonnne Ntiamoah. I have worked in fashion education and creative education for many years. I helped set up the first fashion degree program in Ghana and recently helped support the establishment of the first creative education institute in Accra, in West Africa. In Accra, I work with students from all over the world in terms of creative education, and at present I'm working with an institution in the UK, again in creative education. I love supporting students change their lives. I believe students can change their lives within creative education and transform communities within the developing world. Thank you. Looking forward to speaking with you all. Thanks.
Okay, and I don't know if Boipelo is here today, but that's fine. We can move along. I think Larry Robes are going to join us maybe shortly.
Yeah.
Oh, Boipelo, oh, you are here. Thank you. Didn't see you. Please.
Can you hear me well?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Hi, everyone. It's evening where I am. So I'm in South Africa, and my name is Boipelo Madonsela. I work in the sustainability space. So I've worked in Cape Town as well. And I just recently moved to Johannesburg, South Africa, where I work in the sustainability space. And more recently, I've been working more within the waste space. And I think quite a big focus as well in that space, is sustainable fashion, but also looking more closely at, design work. And we look at design for packaging and for other things as well. But also, I think there's also quite a great focus in my work on consumption patterns. How do we consume? Are we supporting more the linear economy, or are we actually looking at transitioning towards the circular economy? So that's what my work is all about. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think that Larry Robes, I don't think they're here, but hopefully they will join. I've been excited to have this conversation, mainly because I think that, circular thinking is the way forward, not just for the fashion industry, but for many industries. Just the fact that we have so much waste and being able to think about solutions and ways that we can make this, circularity work from a business sense, and also from a sense of how we can help it empower communities as well. So I want to get this session underway with some questions. So the first question is kind of directed at Katekani, Yvonne, and Tamburai. How can circular design principles effectively integrate into the creative industries in Africa? And a bit of follow-up there was, what are some of the successful examples of circular business models in Africa in the creative economy? And how can circular thinking contribute to the economic growth and job creation in the creative sector? So, just thinking about the creative sector, how do we integrate it? How do we integrate that into those business models that we have in Africa? So let's start with Tamburai.
Sorry, I'd forgotten to unmute myself. I think when you say that, the first thing I think of mindset, right? I think as people who want to start businesses and as entrepreneurs, we always have this mindset that you need capital, right? So I think, yes, you do need capital, but I think people need to start learning to use what they have and the resources that they have. I think that's the first way to be able to think in a way that can help you to build a business, a fashion business, which is within the sustainable industry, right? I also think that just sort of being creative and being able to sort of do your research and see how are people taking waste and creating it into really valuable items, So I currently have a store in the watershed, in the waterfront in Cape Town. And there's a lot of different examples that have been quite successful through using waste material to create beautiful products. There is a brand that I know that uses, the top part of the can to create like jewelry items and handbags. My very own example of one of each is that we started with offcuts of leather and African print fabrics, which my mom had been given over so many years, like at traditional ceremonies or like birthdays and celebrations, which she wasn't using. So we decided to actually take all of that and waste materials of leather, which we had gotten from like upholstery companies, and we created one bag. And that one bag 9 years ago, we're still our business model. It's still our concept. It's one design. We have literally no waste in our studio. All the waste is used somewhere, somehow. We've created home decor pieces like bean bags, which we use the waste material. So I think you actually cannot tick all the boxes immediately in terms of building a circular fashion brand. But I think it's important to stick to what you can do and do that really well. So I think on our side, we haven't used any like technologies of some sort to reinvent leather to become something else. But I think what we've really put our pride into has been the people aspect. Like really paying above minimum wage, which I think in an environment where I am in Cape Town and in our industry, that's very challenging. A lot of the people in the garment industry, as we know, are paid way below what they should be paid. So I think just really deciding like how, just having a mindset of creating a brand which is intentional with regards to that, I think is important. But I think with regards to saying that, changing the mindset of constantly thinking that you need big capital to buy all these resources, which become waste sometimes, if you make a mistake and the business doesn't succeed, it becomes quite challenging. So I'm not saying you don't need resources, but what I'm saying is that we need to learn to start from nothing to build something. And one of each, I think, is a clear example of that I think I've seen and I've been in. We started the business with $200, and in 2 years we had turned over like quite a significant amount of revenue, but this was based on using waste material only. So I think it's very much possible. And then people started calling us a sustainable brand when that was not our intention. We were just really using what we have from a normal setting. And I think I always like to say this, as Africans in general, we are very resourceful people. Like if we look at the method of how we live life, it is always been organic. It is always been our way of life. But I think now it's becoming quite commercialized, which I think there's also something wrong with that.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, definitely. Yeah, I love the fact that, it's only by default that you've been called sustainable, but, people like in Africa, even my mum, she, always was reusing stuff. It's ingrained into the culture. Yeah. Yvonne, let's hear from you.
Yes, I would like to reiterate that and highlight what you've just said, because an ethical way of living is very much ingrained into our culture, our traditions, and our societies in Africa. There is nothing ever thrown away, including soft drinks, the bottles of soft drinks, and recycling of beer bottles and taking them back to be refilled with the same product. It's just a way of life. What does worry me is having this tag on it now. Do we then reinvent what we have already ingrained into our society? And in then doing so, do we collapse some of the chain that we've created organically? Once we put a label on it, we put a price tag on it, does that create more wastage? And these are a lot of the question marks that I have in absolutely turning over what we've done or turning what we're already doing upside down and remodeling what's already ingrained in the society. If you look at labels like the Revival Earth, which are a Ghanaian label based around Katamanto, the secondhand clothing market in Accra in Ghana, it's a brilliant model of upcycling, but that's based on garments coming into the country. What's happened to the sustainable way that we used to live within our cultures and our traditions? What happened to the cloths that our grandmothers wore and what they did with those cloths, and what happened to the children in the village, in the household? How were they clothed? And so on. So I think we need to relook at some of the sustainable ways that we used to live and still ingrained in our cultures now, and what this new model means in terms of the imported secondhand garments that are coming into the country, and what this means to our society, and is it a sustainable new model that we are adopting into our culture and our traditions, or is there a way where we can infuse the old traditions with what we now know as the new way of upcycling? Sorry, I've given thoughts and questions as with my comments, Trish.
Hang on. Yes, you know, thoughts, questions are always good. You know, the more questions you have, the better solutions you get. They're the basis of innovation. So I totally agree with what you were saying, especially when you're talking about, you know, now it's sort of been commercialized. You know, we do need to be mindful about how that's repackaged, you know, something that's already been there. So Katekani, let's have some input from you on this topic.
I feel like Tamburai and Yvonne have pretty much summed up my thoughts. I think Tamburai said something about the mindset. I think that's a very valuable point in the way we view everything in circularity. I think as Africa, we've always been like an unconscious group of people who have always practiced upcycling, but I don't think we've given it enough value. I think we need to think about giving it value, high value, that the lives that we are already living are of high value. I spend a lot of time in small rural areas where I notice that most people see upcycling as a sign of poverty, something that you practice out of poverty, not consciously. It's not something that it's like the more you get ahead in life, the more you stay away from circularity. So I think we need to change the way we see it and how everyone sees it, and give it more value. Make people realize the value in what we already are, because I think it'll come off as something different as soon as it's becoming commercialized. When it comes back to us, it's going to seem like it's something from the outside and we need to learn it from other people, but we're actually practicing it already. We just need to change the way we see it, the way we think about it, and just give it value. I think people will engage more if we give it an even higher value.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that comes from do you think that comes from, you know, designers, or is it something that, you know, you feel like governments need to kind of let people know that what they're practicing is good and something that, you know, other cultures and other places can learn from? Or do you think it's something that designers need to kind of be aware of, like, you are a circular designer, you use, you know, recycled fabrics, you know, is that something that you promote when you're selling your clothes, or is it just something that's by default there anyway?
It's something that I promote very consciously. And it's something that I think everybody needs to contribute to. I think we all need to agree on it and push it to the forefront as much as we can. I've stayed away from making clothes for like the past 2 years. I think since the last time we spoke, I've stopped making clothes and just focused more on making people understand the value. So I just make experimental, I create things that are very experimental just to show how available this thing can be. And I think it's the government needs to be a part of this. The designers need to be a part of this. I think all creatives need to be a part of making everyone notice that this thing is of high value. And if we practice it consciously with our mindset intact, it can shift the way that we view the whole world generally.
Yeah. Trish, may I say something?
Yes, of course. I always want to hear.
I love all these voices, so profound, but so important that we embrace our culture, our potentiality. We have treasures, and it's ourselves. Each of us are the problem, looking and following and not embracing what we are. So I think what we have more in our world is this crisis of values, of forgetting the profound human values, what we are for here, who we are, for what, and understanding that we are just this guest in our world. We can transform our profession, embrace our culture, all the opportunities, all the abundance that is around us in order to organize in a different way. And the creative economy is that opportunity, yes, but we have to rethink everything together. And so important. I love Katekani. You are inspiring others. You found a way in order to produce a cloth or a piece, an article, a hat, in order to, let's say, make a dialogue. And after you learned so much, that you are inspiring other in the way you think life and our role. So important. And the same is what we are trying to do at Hecho por Nosotros with the toolkit. Yes, how so many change makers that many of you are part of that voices there, how different actors in our world can be inspired about change makers that embrace their culture, their opportunities, waste, leather, and went through a brand, a company, a profession in order to be part of this systemic change. So valuably, and to believe in ourselves, I think is the first stage.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you, Adriana. I'm, with you there on that. It does start with us as well, and that kind of leads me into the next question, which we're kind of looking at. There are barriers to implementing circularity, and whether I'm just interested in whether you think they come from, where you think those come from. Do they come from, the governments? Do they come from culture? How can governments and policymakers support and promote circular initiatives in the creative sector? What are some of the ways you think that can happen? I've seen in the, in the North, global North, that we've had incentives, especially in Europe, where money has been put into schools and for designers. But also, the role of education, which some of you are heavily involved in. But let's start with Boipelo, who works sort of, you've got more of a general view, not necessarily in the creative, realm, but you also do work a lot with waste and the kind of business models that go with that. So what do you think are the main challenges and barriers in implementing sort of circular thinking in Africa, in the economy in general? And we'll get to the creative economy.
Cool. So I'm actually just gonna segue and jump off of our previous discussion just around, traditional practices and mindsets, because it's almost kind of throwing a span in the works, which Katekani has almost done already, to say, I think in Africa specifically, we have had these deep-rooted traditions around, reuse and really just living in a circular way. But I think, especially now, I think with capitalism, and I think classism as well has really, created this thing where Katekani was saying that, that kind of behavior is now associated with, if you're from a lower class, then you should be recycling and reusing. And it's almost like an alternative to not being able to dispose of something and purchase something else. So I think that's definitely one of the big barriers, and it all links to behavior change as well, and consumption patterns, where if you're consuming and buying, it's almost seen as, you're almost progressive in life, where if you're not, then it's a big question mark. So that's one of the things. And I also think, just in terms of like infrastructure and, what our existing supply chains look like, it's very hard to implement circular thinking when you don't have proper waste infrastructure in some African countries. You could always encourage, for example, separation of source at waste, but if your municipality is not able to actually collect your waste separately, then, how do you encourage that? And how do you encourage people to start thinking in that way? And also just looking at, supply chains. I think especially in emerging economies, or economies that aren't doing so well, it's often a question of, money first. Can we do this? Can we afford to do this? I work in the space I work in, we work a lot with brand owners, and we really try to encourage them to, think about the design of their packaging. Is it designed for circularity or recyclability? And we often would, throw ideas at them. If you design it this way, move over to this kind of packaging, it will be designed better, but on cost is too much. It's too costly to go that route. And I think that really does stifle, innovation and circular thinking in the African creative economy. Thank you. That's all from me.
I love your point about infrastructure. I think that's something that we are wrestling with, even in the global north. It's just being able to, especially with textile waste, just finding a way to sort clothing, and just being able to have that implemented in the same way that they have with, plastic waste and other kind of waste products. It's just not there. I know that in Ghana, they've been working, the OR Foundation have been working on a way to kind of put that together. And so just trying to sort of think about, where the government comes in terms of, helping that, so that clothes don't end up in landfill. So that infrastructure problem is, that's universal, I think. Tamburai, your thoughts?
Plenty thoughts. So I think what Katekani, Boipelo, as well as Yvonne have said is very interesting, because a lot of the time the people who are affected or who are part of this are never part of this conversation, right? So I really like what Katekani said about the people in the rural communities, because if we're talking about the African creative economy, who are those people? I actually don't think it's people like me, because I've had the resources. I live in a city. I think our actual real African creative economy are the people who are still weaving the baskets for daily use to store their maize and that kind of thing, So sometimes it's very difficult, because does government even think about these people when they're implementing their policies and their incentives? Because a lot of the time, even if those incentives exist, the people in those communities can't even apply for them. Therefore, I really strongly feel like this is an industry which has been designed to further take away from us again, like in the colonial times. You know, like I think really in the beginning, it was very exciting, but you know, as we sort of have more conversations about this, I am starting to worry about the people in the rural communities, because it's their examples that are being used. It's their daily life, you know, that is being discussed, but oftentimes they're not in those rooms to actually tell us what actually goes down, you know. But obviously it's an infrastructure issue, like you're saying, technology, and it's a bigger problem than what we talk about. And that's how I truly feel, you know. And going back to the idea of waste being seen as poverty, I think it's also difficult in the communities that are like even the township communities to promote that, because if you're now promoting somebody to make use of waste, how are they being viewed in the social setting? You know, there are a whole lot of issues that go around. My neighbor saw me picking up plastic bottles. That creates a whole other issue. It even goes into like safety issues and all these kind of things. So I think we have a bigger challenge than what we actually are aware of. Yeah, I think that's what I can say. I think we have a bigger challenge, and also the incentives that are there. Who are they actually going to? You know, are they accessible? What is accessible? You know, so yeah, these are my thoughts, and that's just what I feel. That a lot of the time, then there's also the bigger global players at the moment in these conversations or that kind of thing are still the big retailers, because they've got the money to put behind these conversations. They've got the money to look like they're doing the right thing, yet they still aren't. They're still hiding behind the greenwashing. You know, so I think it's a very broad broad conversation, but I think having these conversations is still very important. But we need to find ways to say, how do we include the actual people in the rural communities? So, for instance, Katekani, you say you spend a lot of time with people in the rural communities. How could we get, for instance, you to have maybe like 1 or 2 young people to be with you during that time that you're having that conversation? Or like I've worked with some people in the Eastern Cape as well, like the elder community, Eastern Cape in South Africa, where there's a lot of beading that's done. And we used to do creative business training in there with the US Consulate of South Africa. And you find that most of the time, these are the most compliant business people, but the opportunities are not accessible to them. No one is going into their communities to actually include them in the things that impact them.
Yeah, Katekani, I saw you nodding. Would you like to jump in here? Oh, I can't hear you. Yeah.
Oh, can you hear me?
Go
now?
ahead. Yeah.
I just think Tamburai was making a lot of valid points. I think that's the ultimate goal for me, is to end up building a relationship with other business people and creatives, where I can always bring in people to go and visit. I think people gravitate towards something that's not local. If it's from outside, it's even more exciting when you bring in people from the outside to come and learn, to come and teach and just share their experiences and their expertise with people. So that's for me the ultimate goal. I'm just starting out right now because I'm very much experimental. So I'm testing out ideas every time whenever I'm with people, how to do things, how to look at things. But the ultimate goal is to create a community where we can have people come in every once in a while, or we can even go out to other areas and just show people that where we are, because what I do, I always source my inspiration from my community and my culture. So whenever people see me doing things from afar, maybe I'm in the city, they see me on social media doing things, they think, oh, that's more, but they actually don't understand that everything that I'm doing, I'm sourcing it out from them. So I want to bridge that gap, I think it would be very interesting. That's a very interesting idea to have people come in and just collaborate and just work and share ideas and expertise.
Yeah, that's great. Sorry, I'm having a few tech issues here. So Yvonne, would you like to chip in?
Yes, I think my issue is how do we solve this? Because I've had this conversation so many times. And Katekani, what you said about placing value on the items that you make. And yes, it does start with you placing value on your artistry, on your creations. And when you add that value or the quality of finishing and so on to your products, then hopefully the consumer will also place value on whatever price that you place on it. They will want to purchase that. I think it's those baby steps that we've got to put in place. So you're placing value on your items by the execution, the quality of your finish, everything, in terms of presenting something perhaps luxurious that's been upcycled, and then the consumer in return is placing value by giving whatever money that you're asking for that particular item. When it comes to our local governance and the second-hand goods that we are getting into countries like Ghana, for instance, if the quality of the items we were getting into the country was better quality and there was less waste, then our upcycling also will be of a better quality or higher quality. For instance, with the Revival organization who use a lot of denim to upcycle and make garments, sometimes that the denim that they're using, it's thread worn. It's so weak in terms of the weight of the quality of the fabric that they're using, because indeed that denim perhaps should have been thrown away from where it's been shipped from, and a higher quality denim should be in the marketplace for that organization to use. That's just one example. I mean, there's tons and thousands of waste products every day that's generated from the imports in Kathmandu. And I think our governments need to put in a standard of imported second-hand goods, just like we have standards in the West for all goods that are imported into the West. We also need that for second-hand goods, and second-hand goods that don't meet that standard need to be turned away from our borders. We shouldn't let every single item second-hand good into the country, even though it means that we then have to get rid of it in landmines in terms of our waste products within our own country. So I think the government does have a lot of work to do in terms of placing
Yvonne, you're muted.
My goodness, all this time you didn't hear anything I said.
No, it was just
No,
the
no.
last 5 seconds.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, I'll make the point very quickly. My first point was that governments need to have some sort of standards placed on the second-hand goods that we have imported into the countries like Ghana. For instance, the Revival Earth organization, they work with denim. And if the denim they had with the second-hand goods that were imported into the country were of the highest quality, then it means that their output, the products that they make to sell, will be of a higher quality in terms of the weight of the denim, in terms of the finishing of the denim, and so on. That's one support that the government can give. In terms of designers, the finishing and the quality of their finished products is what's going to add value in terms of consumers purchasing it and consumers placing it at a higher level in terms of purchasing power. So are we placing upcycled goods in the luxury market, or is it the middle retail market, and so on? I think designers need to think on a more commercial level when it comes to upcycling and upcycling of their items as well. Thank you. That's just a short sum up of everything I've been saying.
Can you hear me, everybody?
Yeah, no,
Okay,
yes.
okay, I'm back. I was sort of unmuted for a sec. Okay, yeah, I totally agree with that. Just having some sort of regulation, you know, over here in the States, there has been a lot of publicity over what's going on in South America and in Africa, in terms of, you know, all of the substandard things that have been shipped to other countries. I think that you made so many valid points. It's also, you know, a bigger conversation. Yeah, I think that, you know, the government does to enable circular thinking to happen. It needs to, I think, as Boipelo said, the infrastructure, as you said, policy, as you've said, all of those things just so important in terms of talking about that. Anybody else want to make any points about this topic? Because I just okay. So we're going to just move on. I'm just going to talk, we sort of talked a lot about the cultural benefits and social benefits of adopting a circular business models and thinking, and that, you know, I think we can conclude that they are already there. It was really how it's being capitalized and how it's going to be used in the future. But I want to talk a little bit about how international community can collaborate with Africa to further enhance circular practices in the creative sector. And also maybe think about environmental stability going into the future. You know, natural resources just due to weather patterns and all sorts of things are, you know, going to be scarcer. I heard people even talk about cotton becoming a luxury project, you know, luxury fabric because of the scarcity of water. So just thinking ahead, do we want to sort of talk a little bit about one, collaboration internationally? You touched on that a little bit, Yvonne, with just that kind of trade in terms of what's been allowed to be imported in terms of secondhand clothing. But just want to elaborate a little bit more on that, on collaboration internationally, and also just the stability, environmental stability, you know, how we look at, you know, how a country can, you know, think about its resources going into the future. So I'm going to have everybody talk about that. Katekani, do you want to talk about that?
Firstly, let me just say, I think international community collaboration is one of the most valuable aspects of what we are trying to achieve as a community. I think just 2 days ago, I have this friend who thinks my work is just weird and unusual. But when they saw that I will be a part of this conversation, it sort of created interest for them, and it made them curious and want to be a part of it and just want to know what, find out, because it's an international platform. I think it just changes those few little things. They change how we perceive each other and how we view things. I think when we collaborate internationally, we get to exchange resources and thoughts and how we vision, how we view certain aspects of the world, and it will enrich and benefit the African community, the African creative community. I think it will benefit it a lot if we exchange internationally. It just shows us how broad or how the potential of where our ideas and our thinking can go will come from us collaborating even further into the world. I think we need to practice it on the regular. It just helps how we see each other. I've just recently done a collaboration with a friend of mine from Kenya, in the past few months, and it was an eye-opening collaboration where I get to see the similarities of the communities that we come from. I always thought that the small villages that I work with, it's just us here. But after having conversations and just working with Wakianda, it turned out we are so similar as Africa, as a community. Our cultural backgrounds, the way we used to do things is just so similar, and we get to learn all of those things. I think we need to engage more with each other in that aspect, and just it will help to decolonize the social engagement that we have with each other. We get to see how we view each other differently and how we view each other similarly. It will help us break down the creative industry into something that we can find common ground and then work towards a specific goal, and just understand how building as an international community will make will lower the odds of us not achieving what we are trying to achieve. I think it's a great idea and a great movement to always try as hard as we can to collaborate internationally. It has benefited my work so much. I've done in the past few years. I've been doing a lot of international collaborations, and it has changed the way I think, and it has fast-tracked the way I do my work and how I apply my work, and just it brings us closer and just makes you appreciate your surroundings, and just makes you think of how you should maneuver and just pivot until you find a creative process that benefits your local environment.
Yeah, Yvonne, would you like to chip in here?
So yeah, extending on the idea of collaboration and governments, I think policy change is really what we are talking about, because we've seen in some African countries where they've put in place policies to help with the imports of secondhand clothing. It has had an impact, a positive impact. For instance, Nigeria compared to Ghana, Ghana has a higher volume of imported secondhand clothes compared to Nigeria, who have put in some policy change to curb the amount of secondhand clothes that are imported into the country. So if countries like Ghana put in place policy change that will, one, affect the quality of secondhand clothes or quality of secondhand things that are imported into the country, and two, then it, by doing so, help the designers on the ground in that the fabrics and the secondhand garments that they get are of higher quality, and if they are thinking of the luxury market and so on, that they are aided in their vision. I think this is the first step for all of us, for all our countries, to think about how do we support the designer on the ground, because the upcycling sustainable model is great for designers in the developing world, but it also imposes a real problem in terms of competition, because if somebody can go and purchase a secondhand garment that's already finished and done for very little money, and then the designer is going to take the same secondhand garment and upcycle it and put value to that secondhand product and sell it for a higher value, how are they going to place themselves within the commercial market? How are they going to rebrand that? How are they going to compete? and it's a competition element that prices our creatives, our designers out of our local markets especially. And you'll find a lot of the upcycling garments, especially from labels like the Revival Earth, they sell to the diaspora, they sell to a lot of people outside of Ghana. So how can they also have the consumers within Ghana, within their price points, but good quality design and fabric for their garments? Again, more questions, Trish, more questions.
Yeah, more questions, and there are
Questions
always
and questions, sorry.
No, but that is, I mean, like I said, true innovation comes from questioning. Tamburai, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think collaboration is very powerful. And I think that is when big corporates, I think, have the power to step in to contribute to this growing industry, especially around sustainability, because they have the power, they've got the, they've got the voice. So I really, in my own personal experience, I've seen the power of great collaboration. But also at the same time, collaboration works really well when there's great intent, and when both parties know exactly, what they want out of it. Because some of the times, you hear of stories where big corporate brands collaborate with smaller brands, and it doesn't always work out well. So I think it's really, really important in that way. And I think Africa has a lot to contribute to the global world. I think we have a lot of creativity, a lot of, a lot of resources and richness within what we do already, that I think rather than being always seen as a continent that's in need, I think we are a continent that has a lot to offer. I mean, I've seen that, having spent 5 months in New York, building my own brand and talking to a lot of people in design, in design and sustainable industry, as well as talking to educators. There's a lot on the African continent that the global world can benefit from. So I'm a big supporter of collaboration, especially when the intention is aligned. I think great things can happen.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I am going to sort of conclude this this session. Thank you for our amazing guests that we've had today. But just wanting to think about, there's been a lot of questions, and I think that's just really healthy. And it seems to us that, working, in collaboration, it's something that we at Heteroponos Ostros we value, and moving forward into the future, we certainly value the fact that educating people. We have our toolkit, which we have a circularity section in there, which we definitely use to capacity build and to collaborate with. And I think that that's something I'm going to talk to all of you about using in the future in Africa, in the communities, in the educational settings. So with that, thank you to Yvonne, to Katekani, to Tamburai, to Boipelo. And I'm going to hand that off to Adriana and Jason to conclude the session.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So important, and I think we need to navigate collaboration in action. Yes, this is the best way we can make this voice happen. We are in this world talking academics, politics, talking media. We need to make collaboration happen, and this is the best voice that we can give to the world together. And would love to give the voice to Jason in order to bring us together. And have to say, I feel so happy to see you again, each of you, Katekani, Yvonne, Boipelo, Carrie, of course, the great Trish, our leader. So thank you so much. Jason?
Yeah, muchas gracias, Ariana. To our wonderful African whānau, it was really interesting to hear around the whole circular systems down in New Zealand and the Pacific. These are also questions and topics that we are asking ourselves to make sure that we're present for our local communities and ensuring that those sustainable systems within our ancient wisdoms are placed properly. So we're looking at all fibre. I'm currently doing an actual system in terms of building a modular factory system around cellulose and lignines in terms of taking natural waste products and moving them into biodegradable materials. And so we want to build it out so it can go to communities such as our African brothers and sisters, and they can utilize their natural fibers that they have in their wonderful countries and be able to turn them into materials for their own communities. So it's very inspiring for me to hear your voices and what you want to place. And we know that it's work in progress, but it is very inspiring. So keep doing what you're doing and keep placing your value and helping your communities to see a direction and how you can be building out for future generations. So yeah, so I'll close off for you all. So that I'll just say Tie mauri ora, whakatakata ki te uru, whakatakata ki te tonga. Kia makina kina ki uta, kia mataratara ki tai. He ake ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, homie, hui tai ki. The life force of us all combined, cease the winds from the west, cease the winds from the south. Let the breeze blow over the land, let the breeze blow over the ocean. Let the red-tipped dawn come with a sharpened ear, a touch of frost, a promise of a glorious day. Bind us all together, united as one. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. That was beautiful.
Thank you so much.
The most calming thing I've heard all day. That was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. See you soon. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Beautiful. See you.